So this is a pretty wild experience for me. I am recording this on my birthday, and it just so happens that 14 years ago, on my birthday, was the first day of Jivamukti teacher training. And it was my first official day as a vegan. So it's my 14-year Jivamukti teacher training anniversary, and it's my 14-year vegan anniversary, and it's my 41st birthday. How wild is that? Um, so today feels like a very auspicious day, and it's the day that I'm introducing my first focus of the month to the Jivamukti community. So I'm very excited and a little bit nervous, but mostly excited to share some thoughts with you all. And I look forward. I have a few things planned. I've created some like supplemental content for you all to enjoy and to sort of spark discussion. And I look forward to any discussions, questions, ideas that you all might have about the focus of the month. Just to give you a little idea of how I deal with the focus of the month, like even if I haven't read it, usually what I do is the first few days that I'm sort of marinating with it, I read it through a few times very deliberately, but also kind of with this sense of like brainstorming, like any idea that comes to mind while I'm reading it, I'm going to jot it down on a little idea list. So, even as I read the first sentence, that could be like an idea jotted down on my idea list. So, and then once I've got that idea list, then any one of those little seeds, of those little glimmers on my idea list could end up getting fleshed out into a full open class. And the more open classes you teach in a month, obviously, the more you're going to want to have all your ideas, like your whole spread of ideas, right? And so I find it helpful to do that at the beginning, or even if I'm sort of like running out a little bit out of ideas at a certain point in the month, or I'm feeling a little stale with what I've been teaching, then I'll do that process again of kind of brainstorming everything and then kind of narrowing it down. To start off with, I just wanted to share kind of one of the ideas that feels like a pivotal idea in my mind, but may not like totally make sense, or you might not sort of like see how it all relates. But this idea of restraint leading to freedom. So contemplating the way in which a practice that involves restraining could evolve into an experience of expansion, right? So one of the places where I remember feeling that idea for the first time was in a David Life class. In fact, he was teaching an entire practice based on binding, based on taking different binds with the arms in different of the asana. And he gave a wonderful teaching that day about that idea of constriction leading to freedom, or at least the relationship between constriction and release, etc. Another place I've encountered this idea, which is probably one of the first places I'll look in terms of finding a reading for this month, is Sakyong Mipam's book, Turning the Mind into an Ally, which is a really valuable meditation book for all levels of experience. And even though it comes from a Buddhist perspective, I find it's pretty applicable, across the board with different styles of meditation as well. And what he does in that book is he compares meditation practice to like a tiny little creek, a tiny little mountain creek that has to travel along this very, very, very narrow path. But eventually, that creek opens up into the limitless ocean. Or he uses another image of traveling up a mountain road where he's walking along the narrowest little path, and on one side is the cliff face, and on the other side is the drop, right? So having to be very careful and to step very, very mindfully along this exquisitely narrow path in order to then find yourself on the mountaintop, with infinite vistas all around. And his point is that, the sort of restriction, the discipline and the limitedness of meditation practice, in other words, sitting in the same place at the same time for the same length of time each and every day, doing the exact same narrow focus of the mind, is what then leads to this experience of enlightenment or limitless awareness, or whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it. Another very apt metaphor that I heard from our very own Jules Fabre, his idea was that, sometimes, and it resonates with me because I'm a gardener, right? So anything that relates to, gardening and tending to the garden is good by me. So he drew the metaphor of sometimes when a tree is very, very young, or when a tomato plant is very, very young, or when, anything is very, very young, the need to tie the tree or the tomato plant to a stake, right, in order to give it enough sort of direction and strength and support, so that then it, grows big and strong, and eventually doesn't really need the support in the same way anymore. And so, and that actually has a nice connection to the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, right? Which is the tied to a post method of yoga practice, right? That idea that the yoga practice can be this support to support us along the sort of early nurturing stages of our growth, so that we can, grow big and tall like a tree. So that comes up a few times in the focus itself, not only specifically with the idea of restraint involved, but how restraint then turns into its opposite, which is how I have sort of come to practice ahimsa, right? At first it was well, I better not eat yogurt and honey anymore. I better not eat, whatever it was I was eating in those days. Yogurt and honey stands out for me, but I better restrict myself from doing those harms in the world, which I would otherwise be doing had I not started to learn better, right? We do as best we can, with the knowledge that we can, and then when we know better, we can do better. So that initial idea of yama as a restraint, that initial idea of ahimsa as a restraint, has over the years for me turned into an affirmation of life and of love and of my care for this planet. So rather than just preventing myself from eating certain things or wearing certain things, instead I'm looking for ways to nourish others. I'm looking for ways to rewild my community and to plant native trees and grasses. I'm looking for ways, in other words, to take that idea of ahimsa from a constriction into an expansion. So it's kind of a philosophical idea, but that's kind of why I wanted to take a moment to expand on it a little bit more, because it was an idea that I very much wanted to express, but it's a little bit tough to illuminate in, so many words. And so I hope that did come across. And if not, then maybe this video will help sort of bring that more to the forefront. And like I said, I've planned a bunch of supplemental content. So I've planned some other readings, a little bit of Sanskrit, a little bit of chanting, things like that for you for this month. And I look forward to, again, hearing about your ideas and hearing about what you're inspired to teach this month. So thank you so much.